Good afternoon, everybody. And before I start my presentation, a short introduction of myself. I have a research background. I was a researcher for 8 years working in an interdisciplinary research field, laser-assisted material science. And after finishing my research career, which was a quite successful research career, I had a strong attraction from business, and therefore I established my company, which is mediating between science and business. And this is LC Inner Consult, and we provide various types of innovation management services. As Marco already listed, one of our core business is commercialization of research results, especially in the framework of large European programs such as Horizon 2020. And we already participated either as a partner or a subcontractor in 7 Horizon 2020 projects and provided external service for another 60 projects. And we also do active technology transfer services. We have dozens of technologies on our portfolio to be licensed out, and we provide coaching and mentoring services, training courses on innovation management. So this is roughly my background. I was working as an expert of all kind of big supranational organizations such as World Bank, various UN organizations such as UNIDO or UNESCO, European Commission, NATO Science for Peace, and so on and so on. So I have 29 years of experience in the field of innovation management. And what I want to do this afternoon is to introduce you one of the commercialization tools, which is licensing out. So this is how you can monetize your IP. So if you have an IP, how to monetize it. And I will share my screen with you. Then please give me a feedback if you can see my screen. Madalena?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great. So commercialization of research result is a very complex story. And if I wanted to go through this whole flow chart, then it could be like 6 hours presentation. As we don't have all that time, let's go back to the end of the story, which is decision, or well, a turning point of the story, which is decision about commercialization. There are various routes. Okay, either you do it yourself, establish a spin-off company, or commercialize it in your own company. The other option is to license it out or selling your IP. I must tell you that licensing and sales of IP, they are more or less the same procedures, so I will not take any distinction between selling of your IP or licensing your IP. Most of my slides will be dedicated to licensing. How to choose between using it in your own company and licensing it. I mean, I can give you a kind of physical analog. If you have another property, not an intellectual property, but a physical property, let's say you have a flat. Either you use it yourself, that is related to use your IP in your own business and to develop your own product and selling it, the product, or licensing out is something like renting out your apartment. When we are talking about two major issues, that is the ownership rights and user rights. If you sell your IP, then you transfer your ownership rights as well as the user rights, of course, against financial compensation. If you license out, then the ownership stays with you. So you are the licensor, the ownership stays with you, but you transfer the user's rights to a licensee who will use it and commercialize it. But again, against financial compensation. And if you use it in your own company or establish a spin-off company, user rights and ownership rights will stay with you. I don't want to go into the details of all these other factors, but maybe just some financial considerations. If you want to use it in your company, you have to invest money, while in licensing and sales, it's a very minimal investment, like paying the attorney who will draft the agreement, and in licensing also eventual auditor services for checking the commerce of the licensee. In sales of IP, you have no further costs except paying tax on your revenue. In licensing, as I mentioned, the auditor, while in a spin-off company, you have to pay for the operational costs. That's for sure. Okay, so let's have a look at licensing. Why to choose licensing, and in what case you should choose licensing option? There are two options. One option is that your company is not prepared either mentally or concerning your resources, I mean human resources and or financial resources, to go to the product to the production phase and sales of the product, because it requires too high amount of capital to start your own production and sales activities. Therefore, you can see the commercialization option as transferring the user rights to somebody who is experienced in production and sales, and they will produce it and bring it to the market, and then you will take some financial benefits from that. So it is also a great possibility for the licensee to have access to technologies which are quite advanced in development, so they don't have to start developing things from a very early stage. So they can reach the market with the product in a much shorter time. Licensing is also a very important part of the so-called open innovation system. Most of the large companies, especially multinationals, they have their own open innovation platform where they are looking for solutions, early stage technologies to include in their R&D portfolio, having access to external knowledge. The other option for licensing possibilities, when you also produce, but there are certain markets what you cannot reach for whatever reason, maybe for logistical reason, maybe your goods cannot be transported for large distances, such as overseas, then to be able to reach those markets, the only way is to license it to those regions, geographical regions. So I can tell you stories when there was a company having production and sales in Europe, but they wanted to explore the Far Eastern or Southeast Asia markets. So the way to do it was to license it out to a Taiwanese company, and this Taiwanese company started to manufacture it in Taiwan and selling it in Far Eastern and Southeast Asian countries. So there are pure licensing stories, and there are mixed possibilities, own manufacturing extended by licensing. Okay, I skipped this slide because this is more for researchers. And then it comes the question, how to identify potential licenses. How will you communicate it? I have a product. What is your product? Your product is your intellectual property. So now you want to find somebody who is interested in your intellectual property. So now you have to communicate it. And technology transfer marketing and communication tools and channels are quite different of classical marketing channels and marketing channels and communication tools. So one of the channels could be technology transfer databases. There are specific databases which are dedicated to technology transfer. Here are some, I will not list all of them, but I will list the ones what we have been working in the last few years, and they turned out to be interesting and successful. So the first is called the JATRO, which stands for Japan External Trade Organization. They have actually a twin website, one for business partnership and one for technology transfer. This is a very efficient, free website. You can place your technology offer in a given format. They have a very strict format, and they make a very good checking, and they will publish it within a very short time. Though it is a Japanese website, but it has a global attention. The other one, Tynex, is not that successful anymore. Yet2.com. This is American website working mainly with the top 500 American companies. Some services are free, other services are not free. It's also a very efficient website, also with global visibility. I can tell you a story which might be the case study at the end of the presentation, where we got in contact with a Malaysian potential licensee, and we could make a very nice deal. European Enterprise Europe Network, this is a European network, probably most of you know them, and one of their services is a billboard for technology transfer, and there you can also post your technology offer. They also have a given format. I must tell you that each and every platform, they have their own format. These formats are different. However, the core content of these templates are more or less the same. Maybe they formulate the boxes in a little bit different way, but they are about the same story. Our experience is that it is a little bit complicated. They have a very bureaucratic approach. If you post something, then it should be evaluated. Then they have sometimes strange clarification questions that it takes again a couple of weeks to publish it. So typically it takes 3 to 4 weeks to have it published. And then when it is published, then it is quite interesting, and also it has, I wouldn't say that global visibility, but visibility in 60 plus countries. So the developed parts of the world, they have access to these databases. 9 Sigma, I don't want to spend time. InnoGet, this is a Barcelona-based database, very efficient, very good for technology offers. It's a free service. We have very good experience with them, very fast, very responsive, again, global visibility. Flintbox is mainly for university based IPs. It's operated in the US. Here is a table. I don't want to go into the data. This is for those ones who are interested in the details. As you will have access to this presentation, if you're interested in the details, then you can study these tables. There are some others here. Some of them are not so operative. Here are some databases which are country-specific databases. For example, only for Dutch universities and labs, only for French institutions, only for Scottish universities. So there are some national databases. I don't want to spend time on that. Strategic partners. For strategic partners, we have our own strategic partners who are in the same sectors, but you can have also strategic partners, and in that case, we suggest to use direct marketing. Direct marketing has a different meaning than in classical marketing environment. Direct marketing we use when you have only a well-identified limited number of potential licenses. When you have, let's say, only 10 to 50 potential licenses, then you know them by name. I give you an example. A few years ago, we had a Croatian inventor who had a very specific inventor, electric razor. Electric razor electric razor which for shaving. Of course, it has. If you go to any supermarkets or electric shops, you can see that there are very limited numbers, like Brown, like Wilkinson, like Philips, and so on and so on. So we could identify something like 10 to 12 potential manufacturers, and then it has no use, no sense to put it into a database, but it is more like sending them targeted email, introducing them the technology, and we never say that, okay, would you be interested in licensing? We just ask opinion. Could you give your opinion on this and this invention? And then if they say something positive, then we can gradually go to the question of licensing. I must tell you that although we contacted these 10 to 12 companies, none of them expressed interest, so that was not a success story. The next one is the so-called technology transfer events. Most of them are called technology brokerage events. And these events are bringing partners together. There are various types of partnering events, and among the partnering events are the technology brokerage events. An organizer announces the event and then opens a registration platform. On this registration platform, you can register your profile and your invention to be licensed out, and you can also state the form of cooperation, which could be licensing agreement or contract research or joint R&D or whatever. In our case, the most important is the licensing agreement. And then when you upload it, there are other 100+ other people uploading their profile. And then there you can have that gives the catalog of participants. And then you can have an active or a passive approach. A passive approach that you upload it, and then you just wait if somebody is interested in your profile, and wait until somebody contacts you that, hey, I want to meet you. In the last year, all these events were held online, so you could be contacted directly, or earlier years, and hopefully from this summer on, they are physical events where you can go there and you receive a list of meetings based on the interest, and then you have a list: 10 o'clock, table 12, meeting with this French company; 10:30, table 2, meeting with this and that German company. So this is the passive approach. Active approach, that you have the catalog. You can read the profile of each and every partner. Then you can also ask for a meeting of any partners attending there. Of course, the partner whom you ask to meet you may reject the meeting, which is, I would say, quite rare. And then the story is the same. You send this this meeting request, and then the organizers will prepare a list of meetings, and the whole thing goes the same way as with the partner, with the passive way. If you have a physical event, then it is also very interesting, because according to my experience, coffee breaks, lunch breaks, or even the evenings after the event are very, very useful to establish other very valuable, unexpected partnerships and cooperation possibilities. So I strongly suggest you to use these partnering event possibilities. Here are just some examples. One of the largest event is this healthcare brokerage event, which is accompanying event of the world largest medical trade show called Medica, which is held middle of November in Düsseldorf trade fair. And this is a 2 days accompanying event organized by the local node point of Enterprise European Network. And as you can see on the picture here, on a gallery of a big exhibition hall, that is the venue of the partnering event, and beneath under the gallery you can see the full medical trade show. The only drawback of this event is that during this time, to find an accommodation in Düsseldorf and in vicinity of Düsseldorf is more or less impossible, so you have to prepare in time. The other feature of these events is that most of these events are free of charge, so you don't have to pay for the service. Here are some other events which take place outside of Europe, like BioKorea. There is also BioJapan, and so on and so on. Israel MedTech, Taipei International Invention Show, which takes place every year. 19 International Technology Transfer Conference every 2 years, and so on. BioEurope, that is not a free of charge, but that is a very, very efficient event. If you are in biotech, biomed, med IT, or pharma tech business, that is a very efficient meeting, but it costs you money. Registration would be around 1,000, between 1,000 and 2,000 euros. And in Europe, the largest brokerage event operator is European Enterprise Network. And they have on their homepage an event calendar, and there you can pick, as you can see here, You have various as a brokerage events, company missions, conferences, sector groups meeting, and then what you can see here is Energy Week matchmaking, Finland, Vasa. So what you can see here, date, topic, and city. And then if you click on this opportunity, then you will go to the more detailed description of this particular event, telling what are the specific sectors, participants, technologies, what they expect to attend. And then if you click on that website, you can reach the registration surface of the particular event, and even up there you can see more details, registration, and also there is if there is an information how many participants by country are planning to attend. So this is a very useful. Here it is. International B2B matchmaking at Oceanology International, agricultural machinery, hydrogen fuel cells. So there are always various events. Okay, through all these channels, let's hope that you could identify a potential licensee. For the first contact, what you share is very basic, very attractive information, which tells that I have a great technology and I share this and this public information with you. But these are very brief information. So then what is coming? You have to start to negotiate with your partner. And one of my favorite slides is this asymmetric slide, because you are the supplier. What you think that your technology is very reliable, works fantastic, it is much better than any other competing solution, and so it is so novel that nobody has ever thought about it, and therefore it has a very high marketing demand. Everybody needs in the whole world your product, even some people need two of them, and it has a very, very high value, millions of dollars, millions of euros. However, the receiver has a little bit different point of view, because what they can see is something new, which means for them risky business. It is a risky business for them. Therefore they have doubts. They want to see proof that it is really working. In the case study, I will tell you how they want to prove that it is working. They want to see what are the competing solutions, so technology benchmarking, and what are the competitors, what are the competing products. And they always say that there is something similar existing, which is true. More than 95% of the cases, this is true. There was a problem and somebody had a solution for that problem. It's possible that your solution is better, but then there is something similar existing. And then they cannot tell the market demand because it's a new thing on the market. Therefore, they don't know the market demand and it's a risky business, therefore they value it very low. So they want to have a more clear picture. What they have at the moment at their hand is your public information. Okay, they will ask the first question, could you share more information with me? My straight answer would be no, unless it is patented. Because if they want to have more information, then I would ask them to sign a non-disclosure agreement. What is this non-disclosure agreement about? This is an agreement, strong legally binding agreement in most parts of the world that I will transfer some sensitive information with them and what they can use it for and what they cannot use it for. So it tries to protect your sensitive information. My experience with large companies, most of them are ready to sign an NDA. That is not a problem. But what they are not ready to do is that if you send your NDA, they cannot handle it. They have a legal department, and their legal department cannot handle many foreign documents. What you can do is to ask your potential licensee that could you send your NDA. Of course, it will not be perfect for your case. So therefore, you can suggest some modifications, clarifications, eventually amendments, and then send it back that it should be modified by this and this and that way. That is what they can handle. That makes your life much easier. I had a case when I just started this type of business activity that we sent to a big company an NDA, and that was the end of the story. The other document is when they ask for some tangible things like material samples, some devices to try, some components to have a look at it, test it, and so on and so on. First is to sign a material transfer agreement. This material transfer agreement is, again, when you transfer the tangible samples, could be material samples, again, could be test equipment, and so on and so on. Then what they are supposed to do with it and what they are not supposed to do with it. So rights, obligations, and restrictions. When they sign these type of agreements, then you are a little bit safer to transfer sensitive information. As I mentioned, in most part of the world, there are countries where this type of documents have a very low value. What are these countries where they have limited value? Typical cases: China, India, Vietnam. In these countries, these documents have limited value. In other countries, like most part of Europe, or European Union at least, US, Canada, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, these are very strong legal documents. Okay, negotiations. You are still you are still going on with negotiations, and your partner starts to be more and more interested. And then you have to clarify a few things to continue the negotiations to get closer and closer to your final destination, which is a license agreement. First of all, license is a transfer of rights, and you can transfer these rights limited to geographic areas. So a license is a geographically limited right. So you can name a given country, you can name a group of countries, regions, you can name continents, or it could be even global license. But you have to clarify what is the geographic area, what the licensee wants to have a license for. The second issue is exclusivity or non-exclusivity. There are exclusive there's an exclusive license, which means that in that given geographic area, there is only one license partner. If it is a non-exclusive right, means that you keep the right to have another agreement with an eventually competing licensee. It may happen if let's say somebody wants to have a continental, let's say Asian license, then you can say Asia is a big piece of land, so I don't want to give to a single unit all these rights, but I may have other partners who can buy, let's say, some smaller regions or even countries. Maybe there is one partner who is interested in having license in post-Soviet Central Asian states, so the Istans. Or somebody wants to have a special license for Malaysia or Indochina. By the way, coming back to this territorial story, please do not only use broad geographic names like Indochina or Europe, but list the countries. So if you make the agreement, say that, okay, we give a license for Europe, which means that Andorra, so you list each and every countries to be precise, because what the agreements about, what the agreements are about is if you have a problem, then that is the basis of discussion or eventually a legal case. So if you have a legal case, then the judge will never be aware what you discussed it before. The judge can only start from a document, and your document is your license agreement. So the more precise you formulate your agreement in a legal agreement, then you leave less room for unclear situations and for the judge to judge upon his or her perspective. If it is clearly put into the document, then it is set. Okay, the next question is duration of this licensing agreement. This is typically related to the product life cycle, and it could be a certain number of years, or it can be forever, and then when the product runs out of business, then that is the end of the story. Confidentiality is fine. Pricing. So as I mentioned, when you transfer these rights, that you do it for a financial compensation. And the typical set of this financial compensation is a two-component payment. One component is called license fee, which is one-time fee, plus royalty. And I will tell you on the later slides what is royalty and how it works. And other conditions could be like further development rights, obligations, and so on and so on. To be able to handle all these things, what we use, and it's not only us, but most of the institutions, and for example, even university technology transfer offices who do these type of transactions, they use a so-called term sheet. I mean, term sheets are used in many other businesses. And this term sheet contains most of these issues, what we discussed. This is a very, very important document because this is already more or less a legally binding document. This is the basis of the license agreement, because what you are doing when contacting an attorney to draft a license agreement, all the data, what you agreed upon, is coming from the term sheet. So it is not the attorney who will agree on the conditions. The attorney will only formulate legally what you previously agreed upon, and this is put into the term sheet. So what are the typical topics in the term sheet? Potential licensee, date, license type, what is the technology, if it is patented, then the patent number. I must tell you that to have a patent is not a precondition of a licensing transaction. Know-how can be licensed as well. So not only registered IPs like patents can be transferred, but also know-how can be transferred. Please don't forget, as it was told in the first session 2 weeks ago, the know-how is a written document. Okay, fields of use, territoriality, terms, sublicense rights. Sublicense rights, I did not tell you what is sublicense. Sublicense is that you transfer the user rights to another entity, for example, a company. But for example, the company has subcontractors, and the subcontractor can the licensee transfer the rights to his subcontractor, or maybe the licensee cannot reach all those geographic areas himself, but has a partner in another country, and they want to transfer the rights to that partner. And of course, that could be possible or not possible. I mean, it's up to your negotiation results. How often the reports from the licensee should be delivered to you, in what form? Okay, what are the payments? What is the upfront payment? What are the running royalties? And what is the minimum royalty? Minimum royalty, I will tell you what is that. And of course, when is the expiration of this agreement? Okay, here are the major components of the of a license agreement. Of course, who are the parties, licensor, licensee? What is the topic of the agreement? What is the timeline of the agreement? Payment terms and consideration, territoriality, role of the licensor, marketing efforts, whether they participate in whatever activities. Very important, sometimes training should be included, because the staff of the licensee should be trained, and of course it is the duty of the licensor. Okay, and yeah, these are the major issues. Also, there are legal considerations like, for example, legal process. That's a very, very interesting story. What is the legal framework of this whole agreement? Most cases are international transactions. What is the governing law? There is a country A, country B, then the licensee and the licensor, of course, they feel comfortable on their own home ground, so they want to have the governing law of their own country. Of course, which cannot work when we are talking about two countries. You have to agree upon which country's legal framework is the governing law. The situation is more tricky, well, when we are talking about country A with a Roman legal system, country B with the Anglo-Saxon legal system. Then it is tricky. Then the next question is arbitration concerning legal issues. Arbitration, again, you have to choose a relevant arbitration court, which is, if it is European, then it is typically either the Vienna or the Geneva arbitration court. If it is overseas, like Far Eastern, then you have to be again careful. For example, there is one of the best arbitration courts of Asia that is in Hong Kong, but Hong Kong is a very special place as it is part of China now. But in China itself, the legal system is a Roman legal system. However, in Hong Kong itself, the legal system is still an Anglo-Saxon legal system as the English colony heritage. So could be some very, very strange situations. You have to be very careful how to choose your arbitration court. I will keep the slide before. Now, what is a recommendation of my very knowledgeable Hong Kong partner, Sean Zhang, not only put positive statements into the license agreement, but also use restrictions, telling not to do, not to this, not to that, not to change, not to do this, not to do that, and so on and so on. So this is very important, what is allowed and what is not allowed. So please also tell what is not allowed, what is not to be done. Okay, so the royalty-based deal structure. This royalty-based deal structure is actually a tool for risk sharing. What do I mean by risk sharing? What is royalty? Let's start with what is royalty? Royalty is a percentage of the revenue generated by the licensee, but at the licensee by the intellectual property. So, which means that the licensee will produce the product, put it onto the market. When they put it onto the market, it will generate revenue, and the royalty is the percent of that revenue going to the licensee. Why is it risk sharing? Because the licensee does not have to pay a large amount of money to the licensor upfront, but if the invention or the IP is very good, then they will be able to generate great market presence, which means high sales numbers. High sales numbers means high revenue. High revenue means that they are happy, so they are happy to share a certain percent of it with the licensor, as the whole business is based upon the licensor's intellectual property. So this is the whole concept of the royalty-based deal structure. Okay, and also it forces the licensor to provide any updates on the technology, as it makes the product more competitive. Yeah. What are the typical numbers for royalty? What is the percentage? And here are some myths that it is typically 5% in semiconductor industry, or this and that and that. No, there are no such standards. This is always subject of negotiations, and it always depends on a lot of factors. Factors like how strong is the IP, exclusive or non-exclusive license, how advanced is the innovation, whether it is TRL 6, a little bit earlier stage, for example, prototype, or ready for market, or already on the market, because these are risk factors. yeah, I have already told that, and here are some combinations. Initial lump sum, here it says 10%. 10% of what? 10% of the value of the IP. In my previous presentation, I already addressed this problem. What is the value of an IP, which is not an easy task to determine. And I must tell you that although it stands 10% here, but in the last years, we hardly can reach 10%. We can typically reach 5% of the IP value, which also tells that when you start all these negotiations, you have to do an exercise, either you yourself or ask for a consultant who can do it for you. Do the IP valuation. What is the value of my IP on a given market? Because I have to remind you, for my statement also was told 2 weeks ago that there is no such a thing that the value of an IP. There is only, the only correct statement is the value of an IP on a given market. That makes sense, okay? And then this 10% refers to that value, but I tell you that in most cases you can reach only 5%. Then the running royalty is the percent what I explained you before on net sales, so on the revenue. If you have a potential license, you're telling that, okay, we can agree on 3% running royalty on revenue, but we would be more than happy to offer you 12% on profit. Well, unless it is a public company, publicly registered company, so they every year they publicize their financial report, then you cannot be sure that how their profit will be. So then if somebody offers you a royalty based on profit, then you can understand that they are tricky. Even in smaller companies, profits can be, how should I say, influenced by various factors and even tricky solutions not to pay so high amount of tax. Therefore, never accept royalty based on profit. The only solution is royalty based on net sales. Typical range is 1 to 5%, and also if the product has a very high added value, very high profit margin even, then your royalty can go up. I could see sometimes cases when it is about 10–12%, but then it is really high profit margin product. Profit margin like 300 to 500% profit margin or even higher. And then here it stands the minimum yearly royalty. What is this minimum yearly royalty and what it is for? It is mainly for two cases. Case one, which is unfair acquisition. Unfair acquisition is when a company wants to block your invention. Why do they want to block your invention? Because they have a competing solution and they want to exclude your solution from the market. Therefore, they want to buy your license. And when they buy your license, they pay you a small amount of money, a few €100,000, and then they put it into their drawer and lock it twice, never to have anybody access to that, which means that they can block. But as they lock into the drawer, they will never produce anything, which means that they will produce zero revenue, and whatever percent, if the royalty is X%, whatever is X multiplied by zero revenue will provide you total amount of royalty zero. Okay, so you want to avoid that situation. Therefore, you say, doesn't matter if you sell or not, still, I want to have 400,000 euros annually on total royalties. The other option is that you have not good performing partner. It's not because they are they don't want to, but they are not really able to. They are not good performing. Still, it is their problem. They have to pay their annual royalty. Running royalties, even the running royalties have different behaviors. I don't want to tell you all this because I hope that I have some good graphs telling what is what. Fixed royalty, when you have, let's say, 4% forever, you get 4% of each and every product which are sold. Then you have the increasing royalty. Maybe in early times there was a major investment, so it is less profitable for the licensee. But as they introduce it more and more to the market, it will be larger numbers, so they can reduce costs, and therefore the profit margin will increase, and they are ready to share more percent with you. That is the increasing royalty. Then decreasing royalty is typically when it is introduced to the market, but by time, for sure there will be some competitors, therefore you have to reduce price, therefore the profit margin will be reduced, and then there is less room for sharing with the licensor, so it is decreasing. Then time-limited royalty, when you agree, okay, the licensee is ready to pay royalty for X number of years, and then you agree whether it is 3, 4, 5, whichever number of years. Capped royalty is when it is the total amount of money will tell how long is royalty paid. You say when the total amount of payment reaches 5 million euros, then the licensee will never pay a nickel anymore. Okay, so this is the IP value chain, what I mentioned you before. So the licensor transfer the intellectual property to the licensee, and the licensee, based upon the IP, will produce a product to the customer. Customer will pay for the licensee, which will generate revenue to the licensee, and a given percent of that goes to the licensor in a form of royalty, which separates the IP market and the product market. Yes, this is what we have already discussed, and here are some case studies from our practice and what we learned from these cases. This air purifier. This is a wonderful story, although it is not the most high-tech product, but the story behind it is that it was an inventor who passed over, and what was left for the family, there are two things: a list of inventions, most of them really obsolete, and serious debt. That's a typical case. And then the family came to me, said that, okay, here is the list of inventions, and they asked our help to commercialize these inventions. And one of them was a prototype of an indoor air purifier. And then we started to promote this invention through various channels. And one of our Chinese strategic partner expressed their interest, but they asked for a lab test. How efficient is this air purifier working? And we did not have any lab tests. So they stopped discussion about it. Without lab tests, they were not interested. And it was also posted on various technology transfer databases, and from yet2.com, it came an interest from Singapore saying that we are interested. And then they also started with this question, do you have a lab test? Because if there is no lab test, we are not interested. Then we understood that without lab test, we shall have no chance to sell it. So we invested a little bit of money to do the lab test with a local university. And then we sent over the lab test. They were happy with the tests, and then they were interested. Then in a very short time, they sent us an invitation to go to Kuala Lumpur, me to go there, bringing with me the prototype. The size of this equipment, the length could be like 0.5 meter. It was like 25 to 30 centimeter high, and same width. So the same width, yes. And I would say this is really ugly looking. So then I flew to Kuala Lumpur. Then on the first day, when we started discussing things, they put onto the table like 7 ventilators, air purifier, all these things, telling that, okay, there are solutions. Why is your product better and more efficient? Then I just told them, you remember the asymmetric slide before, and then I convinced them that yes, this is much better than any other solutions. The key thing was that this company had been looking for an indoor air purifier for 2 years before, but they had a very special condition. The company is a multi-level marketing company, so they want to sell things, to sell it and never ever be involved anymore, which means that they did not want to have a changeable filter, so they did not want to supply filter. So it should be an air purifier with no supplied filter. And this was the one. So after 2 years of search, they could find us, as it has no filter inside. I will not tell you why, but it is this kind of inventions I love, because this is as simple as a bucket of warm water. So it's a really simple and therefore brilliant solution. And after 2 days of negotiations, we agreed that they will buy a global license, or actually they decided not for the license, but to buy the IP. And when I returned back home, we received their sales agreement in about a week or 2. Then we had some modifications, and we could conclude the legal and financial job in about 1 month. And then they had their own designer putting this prototype into a nice shape, what you can see in the second picture. And that is the product which was supposed to put into the market, but they wanted to have this new design and new structure tested in the same university lab. So we sent it to the university lab. They made a test. And this new design was not performing as good as the original one. So they made some minor modifications to improve its performance, and then put it onto the market. And it is it is still on the market, and the family of the inventor was very happy because of two things. First of all, from the amount of money what they received could clear up all the debts, and some more money was still remaining at their hand. And also because at least one of the quite obsolete inventions was commercialized and put it onto the market. So, and we were also happy because our services were well paid, so everybody was happy in this business. The other story is quite a special story because this is a B2B type of technology. This is a working train for weed control on railways. Weed is a problem on railways. I don't want to tell you all the details why it is a problem, just believe me, it's a problem. And then there was a company working with these trains spraying the rail tracks. And they use these spraying frames which are mounted underneath the coach, and about 9-meter width, they were spraying the rail tracks with herbicides. Irrespective whether there was a weed patch or there were no weeds, and then the company came to me and they wanted to develop a train which will observe if there are weed patches or it's clean of weed. And when it is clean, then they will not spray, and they will only do targeted spraying where it is really necessary. So they started to develop this technology, and as you can see on the first picture, there is a camera mounted onto the front of the engine, which gives a signal to the control. Then down you can see the control panel and the control room, and you can see the picture, and then there is a processing software which can identify along the rail track where the weed patches are. It's not so damn difficult because you have to localize the green colored things. I must tell you that you can fool it with green beer or wine bottles as well. That will be also sprayed. So anyway, it will control, and then using this technology in European countries, you can save 50 to 70% of the herbicides used in this process. 50 to 70% savings on herbicide is a lot of money. In a small country, having something like 6,000 kilometers of rail track could result in savings in a year about €1 million. So it's really a serious business. In big countries like England or France or Germany or Spain, we are talking about millions of euros. And then this company started to provide services on the Hungarian railways. And then we got in contact with a UK company having a similar type of train, weed control train, which was really technologically like 10-15 years ago here, a very obsolete technology, but they could do the job. And then when they could see our train, they fall in love with it. And then they knew that in about a year, the Belgian railways will announce a tender for the next 7 years of weed control service on their network. And there were 3 companies sending bids. BASF, this small German chemical company producing a lot of herbicides. Then another small company, SNCF, the French National Railway, and this English SME having access to this technology. And by miracle, this British company won the tender because of this technology. So here it was a very interesting question. What would be the business model? And the business model was the following. The Hungarian company, so the license owner, this is protected by a group of patents. So they built the physical appearance of the train, and but part of the price was a license agreement that they are allowed to use all the licenses, including some physical solutions as well as the software solutions to operate the train. So it's a combined solution between contract manufacturing and licensing. But it's a wonderful story, and now this technology is used in many European countries, and it is when the story started, it was around 2000, and it is still the most advanced technology in the world. The next one starts with a shocking slide, which are the most deadliest animals in the world. And if I would ask you forehand, then you could say that something like snakes or sharks, and definitely not those ones which are listed here, like mosquitoes. Very bad news that the humans are the second. But mosquitoes, because of malaria and dengue fever. So something has to be done. And here is a spin-off company developed a special granulate, which is a substrate of a larvicide killing mosquito larvae. So they did not develop the larvae pesticides or the larvicide, but they developed the substrate, the granulate. And what is the feature of this granulate? Of course, this can adsorb. It's a mixed process of the larvicide, and as a granulate, its density or specific weight is lower than of water. So therefore, when it is spread out on water surfaces, it will float on the surface. And the mosquito larvae typically live in the top few centimeters of the water pond, because they love the warmer part of water ponds. So therefore, the water will wash out the larvicide into the water from the substrate, which will kill the larvae, and then as gradually these granulate particles will be soaked by water, then they will increase their density or specific weight up, and suddenly they will be heavier than water, and then they will sink to the bottom of the pond. So it will do the job and disappear, and as it is made of natural materials, it will not cause any environmental impact in the future. So it's a wonderful product, and then it was a question how to license it. So there were various business models. Business model one was to sell the product, but as it is a European company, to deliver these granulates to African and Southeast Asian areas, that would be too expensive. So that's not possible. Then to license it to local manufacturers, then you have to transfer the recipe. It's actually not patented, but it's a recipe. That's a typical case for composite materials. So then the question was, okay, they have a recipe, but how will they produce it? So then they might need a machine producing the granulates. So selling the machine and transferring the know-how, or transferring the machine production know-how and transferring the know-how for the granulate, or what is the business model. So finally, the best business model turned out to be selling the machine with a know-how of the granulate. So this is a business model. The story why I wanted to tell you that you have to make consideration what is the business model which is most suitable for you. And this is all what I wanted to share with you today.